hello. Welcome to another episode of the Jesus Cartel. With me as always, or I guess as always, there's only been one episode we did, or two episodes we did separate, I think, now.
Okay.
One with Arya, one with Courtney. But pretty much as always, I feel like I can still say as always, and, let's not be too legalistic about it.
Yeah, my name is Clay Russell,
Yeah.
and I'm glad to be here on the Jesus Cartel.
Yeah, man, it feels right. Feels right. What's been going on with you, brother?
Man, things are good. It's Thanksgiving week. Enjoyed that. It's been, just a little busier than usual just because of it being a shorter week, as far as getting things done. Now, week is very busy. I work Thanksgiving, but I'm not able to do what I normally do on Thanksgiving, normally do at a work day. And so because I'll be in control of the center and doing Chapel for All the center and helping that, so I'm not able to do my stuff. So just trying to get things done ahead of time so that Thursday I can enjoy spending time with people. And then Friday morning we get up early and get on a charter bus and ride all the way down to South Plaquemine High School, which is really close to the Yucatan Peninsula below Mexico. And so it actually takes a lot longer to get there than flying to the Yucatan. And so we'll be checking the charter bus down there along with 55 other Mangum Dragon fans. And it's a fan bus. And so we're taking that down there.
You're going to be on a fan bus?
Yeah, I'm going to be on a fan bus. And I wanted to ride on the team bus ahead of time, which leaves 3 hours earlier, just to make sure that I was down there ahead of time to do radio. But then they asked me to pray for the fan bus.
Well, you got to do that through FaceTime,
and I
brother.
felt so bad that
man.
they would have all died and crashed.
That is a
or whatever.
rookie, people-pleasing move. It's not too late. Hey, here's the deal. It's not too late.
Well,
we can
what
fix
had
this.
happened was...
You can pray through me. I'll go there.
You have had to stand in for me before, and that didn't go the way that I told you it was going to go.
Yeah.
But anyhow, they were assuming because it was coming through mine and Becky's messenger that I was asking for the tickets and not Miss Becky. And so they were assuming I was riding the bus. And so... anyhow, as of right now, I'm for sure going to ride back on the fan bus, but as of right now, I'm riding down there and back. So we're going to get in about 3 o'clock in the morning. So and get ready,
I just went through some of that, brother.
Yep.
That's no fun.
It's going to be fun. And so, I'm not getting the rest or, whatever that a lot of people get. Not getting the rest of stuff that I normally get. Usually I work Thanksgiving till about 1, then I go home, eat with my family, and then I have the rest of the day off and all the Friday off.
Yeah.
But this year it's going to be different. So, yeah. But we're excited about that, man. Quarterfinals in football, I forget how big a deal that is because we've been at Mangum for the last 12 years, where it happens at least every other year. 5 out of the last 10 years, Mangum have been in the quarterfinals. But then I look at, other schools like FP, and FP's had some pretty good teams and stuff, but this is their first year to ever be in the quarterfinals since they've been FP,
Yeah, man, I hope they have some success. They've got a really good team this year. It looks like they're going to have about the same team next year, too, for the most part. And so, my dad used to always say, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but you got to get it while the getting's good. And, you just aren't always promised strong rosters. FP hasn't had the consistency that Mangum has had. So you go to Mangum, you kind of figure you're going to get a shot somewhere.
Right.
You got some schools, Mangum, Oak Grove, and you just know that if you're there, somewhere you're going to get a chance. FP, that's never been the case.
Right.
And so the fact that, hey, not only are they strong right now, they should be strong next year. It's like,
it's a big deal.
Work as hard as you can work would be my advice to those young men, because after next year, and this is it's not a diss to any of the younger guys. I don't know them personally, but I do know the juniors right now. But you may never have this shot again.
No, they definitely got a great squad, and like I said, it's not something that they even really saw coming that much. It's homegrown talent, it's transfers, it's people's jobs change. I mean, all kinds
NIL
of
deals.
out here. NIL deals, which is legal now, and you can't go out of section, but you can pay somebody to come. Man.
That's right.
So anyhow, it is what it is. But excited about that. My son getting to be a part of that, and you know what? We're playing the number 2 team, and but our coaching staff has looked at tape now on that team, South Plaquemine, and they think we got a shot. Yeah.
I can tell you this, man. I'm super bummed that y'all are having to go up against South Plaquemine, but it has nothing to do with the skill gap or perceived skill gap. It simply has to do with the distance.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound like sarcasm. I don't know that there is a further school to travel to from I literally don't think that there is a further distance to travel to go play a ball game.
Right.
Am I wrong? I don't think there is.
Not from us.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
From this location.
Yeah, because you can go, you can go to DeQuincy or whatever at the very bottom of the west side of the state and get there in 3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And you can go to Baton Rouge and anywhere around Baton Rouge and get there in 3 hours. But this is literally, 5.5 hours without the breaks. Now, something I did want to ask you about that is this. The furthest our team has traveled this year is an hour. Okay. Now, a lot of this team traveled to Centerville last year, which was it was a long ways too. It was about 3.5, 4 hours, and it was ugly, an ugly place and everything. It was just terrible. But anyhow, and faced some adversity, but did really well in that game. JV was in there, in fourth quarter, which doesn't usually happen. But anyhow, but then you got all these freshmen that are playing for us right now that haven't done a trip like this. Like I said, the furthest trip this year is an hour, But here's what I was thinking about, and this is where I wanted to get your opinion is thinking about who those freshmen are. They're Colby Casey, they're Ty Wilcher, Branton Twiner, you got Rayon Bell, different ones. And so these kids that are having to start as freshmen, we're starting 4 or 5 and probably will play 10 to 12, between special teams and all that. They all played travel ball, baseball, and they've all played everywhere, And so I was just wondering how you feel like that's going to translate. They're used to going long distances to play ball, but they're also used to staying with their parents, being in hotels and that kind of stuff. How do you think that'll translate to these freshmen making their first long road trip on a charter bus for a football game?
They'll probably do better than your older kids that haven't traveled as much. It's just a reality. And so, having to play at different stages and different levels of competition and stuff like that, a lot of these young guys, it's not all of them. I don't know anything about their travel ball team specifically. I know ours was a top 10 nationally ranked team. And so when we went and played tournaments, we weren't playing your local podunk tournaments, but we traveled the southeast or everywhere from Texas to the coast of Florida, and this is what we did every weekend. And so anything that I played in high school was like nothing. This is just another day, and so you kind of, I don't want to say you get numb to the bright lights, but in a way you kind of do. You just kind of get used to it. And so I think that will definitely be a benefit for them. Are y'all traveling, staying the night, playing the next day, or are y'all traveling, playing same day? I'll tell you this, because this will matter. If they sit on that bus for 5.5 hours straight and you don't stop and make them move around, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. They'll definitely stop and eat. I haven't asked them where. They'll definitely stop and eat along the way. Sometimes we go out and practice along the way.
That'd be fun.
And, and then sometimes we wait till we get there. I'm not sure exactly what the schedule is this time. But, like I said, these boys, in fact, 3 of them that I know of, well, more than 3, but 3 of the freshmen on this team played in the World Series when they were 12. And so they, went to regional tournament, state tournament, and then a few states away to go play for several days. So they're used to the travel, and they're used to the bright lights. But like you said, it's different when you get on that charter bus. All your fans are they got a send off at 8:00 in the morning. 11 hours before the game, they got a fan send off. And they're all waving at you, and you walk out. And you got your Mangum gear on, you got your beats on, and you're getting ready. And then for the next, 11 hours or, 9.5 hours, you're either riding a bus, eating lunch, or stretching or something, or nothing really, just walking around. And then all of a sudden, 9.5 hours later, you start getting taped up. 10 hours later, you finally get to, do some jumping jacks, and stuff. I mean, it's got to be a lot going through these kids' minds.
I'll tell you the other thing. One more thing that you need to watch out for. Watch what they bring on that bus. If they bring a bunch of candy and Cokes and snacks and stuff in their bags, and that's what they indulge in for 5.5 hours on the way, you are not going to be in good shape by the time you get to that game. So just something to think about. Something to think about. It's all those little things play a factor, especially you're coming in the underdog and having to make such a long travel. The other team's not going to be doing that. They're going to be sitting at their house waiting on you.
Chilling.
And so you want to mitigate as much of the disadvantage of being the away team as you can. And
it's exciting. It's Friday Night Lights. It's exciting. It's something that I really get pumped up about.
I'd love to come.
It's a long way.
I'm not going to.
So I will say this on the air, because this won't air until we're on our way down to the ball game. But
I could put it out early.
But I asked Coach Wutcher on Monday. I said, well, we were talking about things and getting things, situated. And I said, look, if we get 2 upsets, then we get a home game. And because if we win and Franklin, it's either Franklin or Franklinton, if they win, which they could, then we get a home game. If not, if we won, we'd go to Logansport, and which is about a 3-hour drive probably, not bad, but it's on the Texas line. It's just weird to get there. And he goes, "What do you mean 2 upsets?" And I said, "Well, if we win and Franklin wins," he goes, "that's 1 upset. We're going to win." And I was like, I like that mentality on a Monday morning. I mean, hey, that's a coach that's watched film all weekend.
And you can tell he's been thinking about that.
That's right. That's the coach that's watched film all weekend. He didn't speak like that Saturday morning when we first talked. He was like, "Yeah, we're going to watch the film and look at this and that." By Monday, he's like, "How dare you call it an upset?"
That's funny.
That we beat the number 2 team in the state.
Man. Well, good luck to y'all. Good luck to Franklin Parish, man.
Some great boys on that team.
I'm hopeful for the area. We just got back from YEC in Alexandria. Took a big group of kids from Crockett Point out there.
Yeah, tell us, what is YEC?
YEC is a Youth Evangelism Conference. I think they may call it the Youth Evangelism Celebration now, because that, I guess, sounds cooler. I'm not exactly sure. But basically it's a 2-day event, 4 sessions, speakers, popular worship bands, and then Ren Collective actually came and did a concert at the end of the last day, which is my favorite worship band. I was pretty pumped up about that. That just happened to work out. But yeah, man, it's just a time for the kids to get poured into. In trips like that and stuff, they're exciting for the students. They don't get to go do a lot of stuff like that all the time, and so getting to go together and hang out with your buddies and not have to play a football game when you get there, it can be a lot of fun. And for the kids at Crockett, this is the first time they've ever done anything. The last kid who went to church camp or anything like that graduated last year.
Okay.
And so I just got to Crockett and was just kind of picking Mr. Kevin Graham's brain about, what had been going on over the last few years and what they normally do, and just trying to figure out, what I was
expectations and all that.
Yeah, not even just the expectations. It's like certain churches kind of go to certain camps, and they have like certain ways they like to do things. So I was trying to wrap my head around, okay, how do they do things here? And Kevin's like, this group really hasn't ever done, and so that was really cool for me, because I'm going to get to be a part of their first experiences with a lot of things, and kind of pave a new path of how things are done with the youth at Crockett. Be, if I'm there for 4 years, 10 years, or 1 year, or what, wherever, however the Lord leads that, we'll kind of get to set the precedent for what happens there, and that's really exciting. And man, they had a great time. Fantastic group of kids. When I tell you we didn't have any issues, I mean zero. Good kids, good parents. Chaperones that came were just fantastic.
So how many kids did you take?
17 kids.
Okay.
17 kids.
So how did y'all get down there?
So Crockett has a 15-passenger van. It's I don't even know how to describe it. It's not like the 15-passenger that we had at River. It's like taller up top. You know what I'm talking about.
Like a short bus.
I just don't. Kind of like a hybrid-ish between the two.
That's the whole reason I asked the question.
Yeah. And so we took that, and then I took my Jeep, and then 2 sets of chaperones took their vehicles.
Did y'all
as
stay
well.
on the grounds?
No, we stayed in Pineville.
Okay.
Yeah, I refuse to stay in Alexandria because I'm from there, and I know Alexandria.
So 2 more questions.
Okay.
You said that they now call it a celebration because that sounds cooler.
I would think.
Was it cooler?
So full transparency, YEC has happened in Alexandria my whole life. I've never been.
Oh, okay.
I've never been. This is the first time I ever went to YEC. Now, I get a detailed report about YEC every year because
a lot of people attend.
most people go. The reason we never went is because it was in our backyard.
Yeah.
And then when we got here, the reason we didn't go is because we always went to Winter Jam, which is like not too long from now.
Yeah.
And so they're very close and they're very similar. The difference between Winter Jam and YEC is kind of like maybe like 2/3 preaching, 1/3 music, and Winter Jam's like 3/4 music, And
all right, last question.
Okay.
Ren Collective was your favorite worship band going in. Is it still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. They are even better than I thought they were. They sounded exactly like they sound. There is no discernible difference whatsoever. 2, it's their live albums that I enjoy the most anyways.
Yeah.
And then 3, you will never see, they're Irish, I don't know if you knew that, but you will never see a more energetic group of people.
Well, and they're very, very good musicians.
Yeah.
They do some things that a lot of people don't understand how technical they are.
Yeah.
They do some pretty cool stuff.
I know that like my favorite songs by Ren Collective, when I have shown them to worship leaders and stuff like that, just hanging out, not like, hey, we should play this. Don't ever do that, by the way. Don't ever tell your worship leaders what songs they should play. They probably won't tell you to your face, but they hate that. But like we'll just be listening to different worship music and stuff like that. And anytime I play one of my favorite songs by Ren Collective, they're just like, yeah, we can't.
Yeah.
We can't play that.
You don't see Ren Collective played on normal Sunday mornings very much.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
The only song I've seen played by Ren Collective is Build Your Kingdom here. It's the only one I've ever heard. And it's a more tame version. But they also have a lot of unconventional instruments and stuff that get played. And so one being like a fiddle is a massive part of their ensemble. Build Your Kingdom doesn't have it.
Right.
And you know what I mean? And so, and you can play a track, but it's
different.
It just is.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. Other than that, man, things have been going really well. Things are shaping up for us. I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
We have, for a long time, been working on these premier sponsors and premier sponsorships, and so I want to bring to the table Arizona Tea has an Arnold Palmer. It's just absolutely delicious. Help yourself to one. Half lemonade, half sweet tea, which actually is not the way Arnold Palmer made them himself. I've seen Arnold Palmer make an Arnold Palmer, and it's tea, lemonade, tea. So the ratio is actually 2/3 tea and only 1/3 lemonade. But they are delicious, and they cool you off on a hot summer day. And we look forward to Arizona's release of Mystic Mountain Blueberry. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
So You got any sponsors this week? Or
No, all my people flaked out for Thanksgiving. So it is what it is.
Yep. Speaking of flaking out for Thanksgiving, our Parker order situation has been wild. And so shout out to Mark Honeycutt for keeping me informed, because they've been throwing some curveballs at us, man. Yeah. But Mark's been on the ball. He's been reaching out to me every time they throw another curveball at us, and so I've made 3 Parker orders in 7 days, all because Mark told me I had to, or else.
Well, we need to make an 8th, because I'm out of plates and cups, and so I just keep forgetting to tell you.
Well, praise God.
So we'll have to call Mark again.
Yeah. Last week we did our big holiday episode, which was well timed, because this is prime time. It's game time tomorrow for most families, and we had an interesting conversation about pumpkin spice, in which most people figured out they're not going to heaven, and that's something for them to work on. There was something that happened at YEC that I thought was a really good thing, and I'm going to use it today as our Get to Know You segment question.
Okay.
There was a guy, his name is Brandon Allen. He was walking around with a microphone, pulling kids to the side and asking them to rank Thanksgiving foods from 5th to 1st. Start with your least favorite of the common Thanksgiving foods, work your way up to number 1. So, Mr. Clay, I'm curious, if you were going to rank your top 5 Thanksgiving foods, and what would that look like?
Yeah, man, that's interesting. Today I walked in, set my phone up, you were preoccupied, and then you clapped and we started. So hadn't put any thought into this whatsoever.
Do you need me to
No,
lead off?
I don't need your opinion. I just need you to clarify something.
Go for it.
Okay. So is this regardless of who cooks it? Or because this is a big deal to me. So if you're asking me to rank what we will eat at our house, then that's different ranking than somewhere else.
Give me the ranking of what you would eat at your house, and then we'll have a brief conversation about what would look different if it were someone else's meal.
Okay.
How about that?
So if we do it at my house, number 5 would be macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
Yep. My mom will make the macaroni and cheese. She makes it in a crock pot. She does a great job. It would definitely be number 5. We'll have 12 items, and in the macaroni and cheese will be number 5.
For sure, it will be 12.
Well, it's always how 12? Many desserts they make.
Okay,
but
I got you.
But I'm not even putting desserts in this.
Okay.
For a reason. And then number 4 will be green bean buttons. Now, it doesn't matter.
Talking bacon green beans, like wrap?
Yeah, so you take whole Del Monte green beans. It has to be Del Monte.
Okay.
You take whole Del Monte green beans, the ones that are in the can. If you buy the fresh ones, it doesn't work well. Well, Flick tried that one time. He messed it up. So you take the whole ones.
In Clay's defense, Flick can mess up a lot of things most people wouldn't mess up.
But you know what about Flick? Flick was here Sunday to hear me preach. Now, this is something I haven't made as big a deal about, but I do want to make a big deal out of it, and here's the deal. God had told me earlier in the week that there was something I was going to say for our admission coordinator at Fresh Start.
Oh, wow.
That would be specific for our admissions coordinator. So and I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was something that was in the message was going to be specific for the admissions coordinator. But I looked around, and Tyler McCarty, who is really not good enough to be our admissions coordinator, but he is our admissions coordinator, he was nowhere to be found.
Wow.
Yeah. Usually I can find his girlfriend and then just assume that he's next to her because their heads kind of go together. But neither one of them were there.
Wow.
Right? And then so I said, well, Ryan is still helping with admissions.
Oh, no.
Maybe the word is for Ryan.
Don't tell me.
The issue is Ryan's not there.
Oh, man.
So, because one of my very best friends in the world was the admissions coordinator before Ryan, it's very possible that he would be there. So I start looking for Joe Campbell.
Don't tell me.
No Joe.
No Joe.
No Joe. And I said, well, if it's not Joe, then surely the one before him was my sister-in-law, who I sent in a group text and said, hey, I'm preaching on Sunday. And so I was looking for Aunt Paula, in the crowd. And she's only 4'7", so I was looking everywhere.
Yeah.
No Aunt Paula in the crowd. And then in the back, in the very back, stood a man, 6'1", 350 pounds, and our very first admissions coordinator, David Flickinger, was in the back watching me preach. Man, how cool is that?
Praise God. And he's a Red Sox fan.
And he's a Red Sox fan.
Plus 11 points. Yeah, I love Flick.
He's also an OCS dad, so, I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah, but Matt Rayleigh's also an OCS dad
And
now,
I like Matt Rayleigh,
which really takes down
So anyhow.
green bean bundles.
So whoever makes the green bean bundles is going to be fine. You take 6 of the whole Del Monte green beans, and you put them together, and you take a fourth of a piece of bacon and wrap it around. Then you make a mixture on the side that's butter, brown sugar, and soy sauce. And you boil it, and you mix it up, and you pour that on top, and you bake it until the bacon is crispy. And everybody in my house, because I won't even be there, I'll be at work and while this is going on, everybody in my house knows how to make those perfect. So they'll do a great job.
Praise God.
The third thing on my list will be...
So we got mac and cheese, green bean bundles.
That's right. And the third thing will be the fried turkey. So
fried turkey.
We'll have fried turkey, and it will be number 3. And we'll probably get Scotty Hester to cook that at the center that morning.
Okay.
We'll let him fry everybody else's, and then he'll fry mine last because I'll be eating later. And so Scotty will fry the turkey, and Scotty does a good job at everything that he does. And I enjoy fried turkey. That's something that I enjoy. He injects it, with like a Cajun butter and everything, and he'll do it exactly the way I ask him to do it. He'll do a great job. The second favorite thing that I will be eating will be a ham that I make. So I take one of those already cooked, smoked, shanked hams and inject it with Creole butter and stuff. And then I take a pineapple, cherry type mixture and drizzle on the side, and I will grill it I'll sear it probably for about 2 hours on the grill, even though it's already cooked. Then I will wrap it up in foil and put cherries and pineapples and stuff in it and cook it for another 4 hours. So we'll cook it 6 hours, even though it's already cooked. And then we'll slice that bad boy up and we'll eat that, and that'll be my second favorite thing. And then my number one thing that I eat on Thanksgiving this time will be the dressing that my mom makes. So dressing is somewhere that can fall from 1 to 30 for me, according to who makes it. Right. And
what's the key?
So the key? There's several keys. One of the main keys.
If there was one thing that sets it apart,
that you don't dry it out.
There it is.
Yeah. So the top has to have a little crisp to it, to where if there's like a little onion or a little egg or a little turkey or a little something kind of sticking out, it's a little brown. Especially if it's like a little piece of chicken stepping out, it's a little brown, but once you cut into the dressing itself, it is very moist and it's not dry. Now, I'm also a cranberry sauce guy. I eat it one time a year with my dressing, and I like it in there. I like it better than the giblet gravy, but I'll do either one. But a good dressing, man, you don't even have to have any of that, and my mom consistently makes a really good dressing. Yep. And the other reason why dressing can be off the list for me is because the one thing that I cannot eat in life is sage.
Really?
And that is something that a lot of people put in dressing.
Like you just hate it?
No, it makes me sick. Yeah, I'm like allergic.
Prove it.
Yeah, and so
we're gonna have some sage together.
So there's a bottle of something called Italian seasoning. And it has a slight amount of sage in it. And I've taken a bite of something with that and been okay. Didn't like it and knew not to eat anymore. But dressing is something that a lot of people love to dump a lot of sage in. And that's just not something that goes well for me.
I like sage. I wouldn't say that I've ever had a dish that had a significant amount of it, though. You know.
So like Larry Adams
Uh-huh.
makes dressing at the center and does a great job. But he makes one with sage and one without, or 3 and 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
And the one that he makes with sage is green. And the one he makes without sage is brown.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
incredible.
And so a lot of people use a lot of sage
Wow.
when they use it. Yeah.
I've never had that. Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So if there was a quick change, let's say you ate Thanksgiving at a stranger's house, how would that order change?
I'd go for the meat.
Go for the meat?
Yeah, I'd go for the meat. Just because, there it is. I'm a casserole guy. I really like casseroles a lot. I like green bean casserole, I like corn casserole. Corn casserole could have went on that list. I like stuffed eggs. I hate deviled eggs, but I like stuffed eggs. And so, I'm a casserole, broccoli and cheese casserole. I like casseroles and stuff. But the meat is the more surefire way to be. Because here's the deal. If I'm not going to enjoy something, then I don't need to feel bad about eating it also. So if I'm eating this random casserole that's got all these fats and all these carbs and all this stuff in it, and I don't really enjoy it, then not only do I not enjoy it, but then I feel bad about myself later. So I would rather go with the protein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good list, man. Yeah. That's a pretty good list. That's probably the second best listing you're going to hear out there. And so just for anyone who's curious, I will give the correct rankings of this right now. Number 5, sweet potato casserole.
Yeah.
Good sweet potato, some pecans on there, a little bit of cinnamon sugar, got some butter in there. You're doing something right.
Marshmallows or no marshmallows?
I'm not a big marshmallow guy. I like to eat marshmallows one way, and that's roasted marshmallows that you have let completely turn black. I mean, just burned all the way. Those are the only ways I truly enjoy a marshmallow. I can eat them and tolerate them. They're like sage, I'm just not a huge marshmallow guy, but I do like them when they're burnt and gooey. But I hate my hands being sticky, so it's a major dilemma for me. So I have to let it burn like Usher, and then
cool it off.
I gotta let it cool
because you don't like hot stuff.
And I won't touch it off of there. And then I literally, like a guy the sword swallowers, I literally, like the flaming sword swallower, will eat the marshmallow off of the stick. But don't put your tongue on that stick.
Oh, because it stays hot.
It stays hot longer. It will ruin your afternoon. Next few days. So coming in at number 5, definitely the sweet potato casserole. Number 4, ham.
Okay.
Ham. I very much enjoy.
You eat ham all year, technically, right? Yeah.
I do. Yeah. There's always a ham in the Skull household somewhere. We eat ham like fiends, and so major thing for me. Coming in number 3. The deviled egg. I enjoy deviled egg, angeled eggs we call them, because we're for the Lord.
Stuffed eggs.
And so yes, I am a big fan. They're delicious.
Bacon or no bacon?
We don't ever make them with bacon, but bacon makes everything better. I definitely wouldn't be opposed to having bacon. We just don't do it. But we eat deviled eggs a decent amount in our house too. Aria loves them, and so coming in at number 2. Cranberry sauce. No question, cranberry sauce owns number 2 spot. And a lot of you guys are thinking, no, I also love a homemade cranberry sauce. No. From the store,
straight out
in a can, it needs to still have the ridges from the can in it. That's the way God intended us to eat that. And number 1, without question, is dressing. But you too have touched on the fact that a dried out dressing will ruin your afternoon. Nanny Bet makes 2 pans of dressing every year, one for the family and one for me.
Come on.
And that's how much I like dressing.
Even when you had long hair?
Even when I had long hair.
Come on.
Yeah. Her commitment runs that deep.
That's a big deal.
And so, yeah, I love Thanksgiving dressing. Truthfully, what happens is I will go fix a plate full of dressing because there is a pan for me with cranberry sauce, and then I'll decide after I've had that whether or not I'm going to go eat anything else. Now, what you will have noticed is turkey was not on that list. A lot of people's eyes, that's a sin. I understand. Too many people are bad at cooking turkey. That's just, I don't make my own turkey. most places you go, the turkey's dried out. That's not a criticism to anyone in particular. I go a lot of places and eat Thanksgiving meals, and it's turkey breast more than anything else get dried out real bad. I'm a dark meat guy on chicken. I love dark meat. Same with turkey. I prefer the dark meat, but as far as like turkey breast carved up and stuff like that, it's just usually just really dry. And if I got to slather something in sauce to enjoy it, it's like it kind of defeats the purpose.
There's other stuff.
Yeah. So that's the correct order of Thanksgiving foods as they're ranked. Let us know when you see us, or let us know in the comments, or send us messages. A lot of y'all just send us messages about the podcast. We enjoy that. So send us a message about why you thought my list was better than Clay's, or just let us know when you see us. And man, we've enjoyed having this conversation for sure. This is one of my favorite ones so far.
Yeah, I like it.
We're not going to do this again for Christmas.
Okay.
Because people usually eat almost the same thing for Christmas, and
Really?
I hate that. Our family does not,
Okay.
but I hate that most families kind of recreate the Thanksgiving meal for Christmas. It's like this is like set it apart, you know.
I like
Do something
it.
different. Question of the week. I want to go back into the conversation we started with Drew Wiggers.
Okay.
And so we were talking about dads raising boys, or just kind of parents raising children. As we kind of talked about it, it really is a crossover thing. It applies to any parent raising any child. And we hit really heavy on the first point with Drew, which was teaching your children to think for themselves. Yeah. And we leaned in really hard to that. And the second point this article that we had read talked about was standing for truth, teaching your children to stand for truth. Just when you hear that, just off the top of your head, hey, you need to teach your children to stand for truth. What does that mean?
Yeah, so before I address that, I do want to say that when we talked about the first one, what was the first one?
Thinking for yourself.
Thinking for yourself. I told a story about an encounter that Cooper had that weekend before.
Yep.
And some people would probably say that I didn't need to tell that story, right? Just because, the implications and everything. But that story got wiped out and wasn't even in the podcast.
Yeah.
So maybe God thought that I shouldn't have told that story too. Maybe that's why he sent
Are you the
hurricane that
reason?
we
Are you
had.
the reason we face the adversity?
It might be. And but anyhow, we actually already had the rain before I told the story, apparently, because it didn't make the cut. So when I think about telling my kids to stand for, what was the word?
Truth.
For truth. So Jesus is the truth. And so that's the first thing that crosses my mind is how do you talk about what's true and what's not true without talking about Jesus being the truth? I mean, he is the truth. And so he is why we live the way we live. He is why we think the way we think. He is why we do what we do. And so Jesus is truth. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind is that when I tell my kids stand for, truth, I'm telling them to stand for Jesus. Mm-hmm. Stand for what you believe in. Stand for who you are in Christ. Stand for your identity, So that's where my mind goes first off. What do you think about that?
Man, I agree with you. There's just one truth, and it's all centered around who people are, and if who people are is God's creation, because that's in essence who you are, is you're a creation of God. You don't become a son of God until you actually accept some things a little further into that relationship. Then you're grafted in, adopted as sons. Up to that point, you're still a creation, which holds a value. It still holds a value. It just doesn't hold a relational value. Does that make sense? Yep. And so, if I build a sandcastle, it has some meaning to me, but it doesn't have the meaning that my daughters have to me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so,
or if your daughters built the sandcastle.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, sure. And so that's there's definitely levels to it, but in sense that we were all created by God, believer or unbeliever, you all have a value to me. Mm-hmm. Even if you're not even if you're the most staunch atheist that I've ever met, you still have a created value to me as a person. And so for that reason, there are ways I'm not okay with you being treated, even though we have a significantly different understanding of who God is, what's true, what's right, and you may not like me at all, and that's fine with me, but you still have a created value that matters to me. And so I want my children to see that in people and value it the way that God values it. And so when my children look at people, I want them to see through the same lens that the Lord sees through. And he saw me when I was at my most broken, sinful, distant version of myself from him, and I still mattered. I want my children to see people that same way. Even in the midst of other people's pain and anguish and loathing and bad actions and all of the things that may come, I still want them to see that intrinsic created value that they have and see them for the potential of what they could become. And if you can't see through that lens, there's no way you're going to stand for anything, because you see somebody who doesn't believe like you being harmed, you're like, well, hey, that's on them, you know. And that's just not the way that I want myself or my children to see things. So the first thing is learn to look at people the way that the Lord looks at them. Then, now that you know what's true about them, because that's whatever God sees is what's true, not what you perceive, but what he sees is what's true. Once you perceive things the same way that God perceives things, now I want you to be willing to stand up for whatever those things are. And I think the difficulty of a lot of things, I heard this story the other day, there's a young man who was at school, and there was a bunch of people that were making fun of his sister, saying just some really hateful things. And so the boy comes across and smokes one of these kids that is saying something about his sister, and then he ends up in the principal's office or whatever. The principal's talking to him, and he's explaining what happened, and the principal basically made a comment that said, well, what if that was true? So a boy comes across the table at the principal, and so the principal calls the dad and is like, hey, look, this is what happened. And the dad's like, well, what's the rule? What's the rule here? And he's like, well, the rule is he gets suspended. He goes, suspend him. Like, what are you calling me for? Like, if that's the rule, he did it, suspend him. So he suspends him. The dad goes and picks up the son. And the son's like, talking to him about, like, what happened, man? Like, you didn't have my back. And he goes, you broke the rule. You broke the rule, and that's the price you have to pay for breaking that rule. He said, now, had you not stood up for your sister, we'd be having words right now. You did what was right. I'm proud of you for doing what was right, but just because you did what was right doesn't mean you get to circumvent the consequences of such a thing. You still have to pay the price for doing what's right. And so that would be the second thing. In addition to standing for what's right, be prepared to accept the consequence for standing for what's right, because it's not free. And people want to talk like standing for what's right, man, it's painted so like beautifully and poetic, and it's like, yeah, man, that's just a guy who stands for truth. A guy who stands for truth is going to be in the midst of some unbelievable adversity, and you have to be prepared to endure that, because when you see all the popular kids at your school making fun of this, and you step up and be like, hey, knock it off. What are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, don't think that everybody's just going to get an overwhelming sense of, you know what, he's right. We shouldn't be. That's not what's going to happen. You're going to be outcasted and ousted for these things. And that only gets more severe as the truth gets closer to the reality of who God is. The closer you get to the actual central truth of who Jesus is, which is the only truth that matters, all in all, the closer you get to that central truth, the more severe the punishment is. Hence, I know one guy who's crucified over the matter. All of his people also murdered or attempted to be murdered. The further you get from that, the less severe it is. But when you start moving back that direction, you stand for the things that matter, the more severe the consequence is. And so, man, it's not just what we should do for my family. The conversation is, this is what skulls do. When something like that happens, that's the way that we talk about, hey, this is what skulls do. It doesn't matter to me what other people do. This is what skulls do. And in this manner, skulls do this. And they know that the skulls have their own way. And that's just, come hell or high water, the skulls are going to do things the skull way to do them. And sometimes that has consequences. And I want them to be prepared to defend themselves, prepared to defend others, verbally, physically, whatever way it has to, educationally even. They need to be prepared to stand for truth and also to embrace the consequence of whatever that is and learn to be okay with it, because at the end of the day, it's okay. It's okay. See, that's where my mind goes.
Yeah, so I mean, The trick there is that we got to make sure, like I said, that we're rooted and grounded in Jesus, who is the truth. Because we can say, hey, we do things this way, but if this is the way we do it and it's wrong, then that doesn't make it right. So like you said, first off, we got to make sure that they're children of God. We got to make sure they have that personal relationship. We got to make sure that we're doing, things from a Christian perspective, and a Christian mindset there. Because people are raised with all these core beliefs, but if you find out later that your core beliefs were wrong, then you're doing all these things motivated by that, And so yeah, I mean, you first have to know the truth, and then we have to be willing to stand up for the truth, whatever that is at the time. But we need to make sure that what we're standing up for is right.
That's right.
And the way that God would want us to do it. And we see that, man. We see that in Jesus. We see that there was times that there were things done that he eased out. There was times that, hey, things were done and he went this way. And then there was other times where things were done and he stood his ground.
Yep.
And flipped over tables and stood there and did those things. And so I think that's us being led by the Holy Spirit. I'm not going to fight every time there's an opportunity.
Sure.
But because I choose my battles wisely, then I almost always win.
Yeah.
Because, hey, just because there's an opportunity to stand for this or stand for that, we have to analyze why should we, what's going on, is this battle worth fighting? But if it is, it doesn't matter what the consequences are. Mm-hmm. If the battle's worth fighting, it doesn't matter what the consequences are. We have to stand for those things. And look, I like it when there's some consequences, even for my kids.
Sure.
You're talking about teaching Ari and Arlen and stuff. I like it when they have to stand and do the right thing, but then there's some repercussions, because that just teaches them. That, to me, that just makes us stronger in our beliefs. That makes us feel better because we were even strong enough to do that in the sight of adversity.
Yeah.
Now, I also like the fact that in that story that the principal asked that question. And I like the fact that the dad asked, well, what is the rule? Now, I probably would have asked, do you ever bend the rule? And if he said no, then I'd be, would have done the same thing,
Sure.
And I like the fact that the dad said, hey, look, you're facing some adversity. Well, it's not the adversity you would have faced if you wouldn't have done,
Yeah.
because like you said, we are the skulls. This is what we do first. And so him defending his sister was foremost.
Yeah.
And then the second thing would have been to do what the principal said or the teacher or whatever. And so, hey, we defied the rule at school. We did not defy the rule at home with the schools, and that takes precedence.
Yeah.
I mean, it just does. And it's kind of like the story that I did tell about Cooper last week, he stood up for his identity as a Christian and as a Russell before he did what his authority told him to do.
Yep.
And that was a big deal. We talked about that in group this week and went a little more specific into that situation with Cooper and exactly what happened and all that and everything. And to see him make that decision, split second, make that decision to defy authority, okay? But to defy his identity and his integrity was really cool. Because it's got to be deep rooted for you to react the correct way.
Yeah.
So many times in life we see people handle things wrong initially.
Yeah.
And then they have to go back and apologize. Or then they go back and have to feel bad about how they did something. Or then they have to have regret and shame. But when you're kids handle something instinctively, correctly, to me, that's like a deep sense of pride.
Yeah.
That this is in them so much that they didn't even have to make this decision. They just did it. They just reacted. I mean, it's kind of like in the MMA or on the ball field or whatever. That hey, doing the right thing is so routine that you don't even have to think about it. You know what to do next. And Cooper's probably never even been put in this situation, but yet he's so deep rooted in the truth and who he is that he just reacted correctly. And for me as a dad, that's way better than him making the correct decision.
Yeah.
That his reaction was right.
Yeah.
Because, and I hope I'm explaining this right. I don't think I ever explained this before, but a lot of people's initial reaction determines how a situation plays out.
People are bad at it.
Right. And a lot of people's initial reactions stink. And so, I hear people say all the time, well, my son made a bad decision or my son made a good decision. Hey, I understand those things. But to me, this was a next level.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to make it out bigger than something it was, but I mean, I'm talking about a split-second decision to stand for truth and stand for identity and stand for integrity in a situation you've never been in before. To me, man, that's good raising right there. I mean, that's good.
That's good.
That's
good. And the fact that, he had to consider there would be a consequence.
Heck yeah.
And he chose the path anyways. And that's I think where the pride comes in, because it's easy to do the right thing if there's no consequence. If there's no consequence for doing the right thing, well, why wouldn't you do the right thing? Right. You get exalted for having done the right thing. But when there's a consequence on the other side, most of the time people pull off. If you try to stand up for somebody who's getting bullied, and then the bully starts barking at you, most people just pull off, like, oh, hey, my bad, I'll stay out of it. You know what I mean? It's like, because now there's a consequence on the table. You know what I mean? Like, you are now in the crosshairs. What are you going to do now? And most people just don't have the gumption to keep going. And I think that's why cementing these things in our children at such a young age is such an important thing. And my children, a conversation we've had many times is like, hey, look, there could be consequences for this, but just understand that if the consequence gets too great, I will step in. Like, fear not. You're not going to be overtaken by whatever it is. Like, I'm here. I'm watching it. Once it crosses beyond your threshold to bear, I'm going to intercede. And so that, gives them more confidence to, feel like, hey, look, if this gets out of hand enough, my dad's going to show up and deal with whatever needs to be dealt with. And that's the way that I always tell them. I don't make it weird or say anything crazy. I just say, hey, look, I'll handle that. You just do what you're supposed to do. I'll deal with the rest. And that's what you want.
Quick story. There was a young man that at a football game a few weeks ago, and I was not in this location, but my wife was. And so there was a young man, and he has a wife and has a young son that's probably 2 or 3 years old, 3 years old or whatever, and there was some older guys than him that probably had drank too much and was being pretty rowdy at the ball game, and it wasn't just one; it was several. But one of them in particular, his mouth had gotten the best of him. He was showing his very limited vocabulary and everything, and he was doing it really loud right there in that area. And I haven't talked to the young man since this happened, but I was told that because this guy's probably, I don't know, man, he's probably 25, 26, 27, somewhere up in that area. But anyhow, he's got a young son and that was right there. And I was told that he turned and he yelled toward that guy's direction and said, hey, I got my son here. Let's chill that out. And I've gotten told this story by several people. Well, he could have walked over there and said it nicer and just to the guy. But that one guy wasn't the whole problem.
Yeah.
There was lots of people that were the problem. He just, so he kind of addressed it all at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an opportunity for just one person to get offended. There was an opportunity for several to get offended.
Yeah.
Now, he was personally addressing that one guy loudly in front of a lot of people. But he, and then, he went on and never said nothing about it. And the situation got a lot better. Now, this guy is a business guy. Mm-hmm. This young man that took the stand. It could affect his business.
Yeah.
It could affect his employment. If this other guy, went to his boss and said something, I know his boss, but there could be issues there. Mm-hmm. But he cared more about his family.
Yeah.
And his son than he cared about the repercussions at the time.
Yeah.
And this didn't just happen, real quick one time. This had happened, and so in his mind, he had outweighed the good versus the bad, and decided that this is what needs to happen. Now, I've been told that this situation has been much better ever since.
Yeah.
But he did not know that when he did it.
No.
Because it's kind of like you say, well, you almost got to expect the worst.
Mm-hmm.
When you stand for righteousness, when you stand for the truth, when you stand for honoring your family values and Christian values, you have to expect the worst, because a lot of times you're going to get the worst. In this instance, I think it worked. I haven't heard anything negative. I've heard that the man, realized that he needed to settle down, that he has been settled down and been great, and everything, and there has been no repercussions. But that had to go through his mind. If I say this, and I say it the way it needs to be said to get his attention and everybody else's, this could make some pretty good backlash. Mm-hmm. But he did it anyhow. And you got to respect that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when it comes to standing for truth, Jesus is always the picture. And the problem is, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, is that I don't think everybody's got a great picture of who Jesus was. Jesus is very much viewed, I would say, by 80 to 90% of Christians as a kumbaya. Mm-hmm. Let's hold hands. Let's talk about our feelings, and we'll figure this out. There's no reason for anybody to lose their cool or do anything rash. It's like, that's not your guy.
Right.
Like, you haven't read the New Testament if that's your guy. If that's what you got, you haven't read the New Testament. Now, there were times where that's who he was. Mm-hmm. There were times, Peter swung a sword, cut the guy's ears off. He said, hey, this is not the time for that. There are other times where he's kicking over tables. There are times where he's cursing fig trees. Yeah. There are times where people are asking, what do they have to do to get to heaven? He tells them to sell everything they have, pick up your cross, follow him. And when they walked away, he didn't chase after them. Nope. He was very much a brash guy. And if you see the way he handled the Pharisees, which was a large majority of the interactions that we have pictures of, they were not kind interactions. They were not pleasant at all. He did not do himself any favors by the way that he spoke to them. I'm just saying, he didn't say anything that wasn't true, but he didn't pander to their feelings or emotions. He could have said a lot nicer. He could have. Right. He could have, and he chose not to. He chose to be brash about truth. And I don't think he did it to be a jerk. I don't think he did it just for, I think that it was just, the truth is so cut and dried to him that he was making a clear distinction that there's not a gray area in between it. This is true and this is not true. And if you find yourself in the middle, you're wrong. And he needed to make clear that nobody in the middle felt like they were okay or in the right place. And so he drew a harsh line so that the distinction could be made clear. And I think I could see from a communication standpoint, as a guy who prides himself in communication, I could see why that was necessary. I understand exactly why he would have spoken like that, because there are times in my life I have to speak that way over certain things, because, like, hey, if I let's just use a random example a lot of parents deal with, somebody giving your kid a bunch of like snacks and stuff like that. You don't want them to have a bunch of snacks, but if you're just like, hey, look, man, we just really prefer it if they don't have any snacks. Very little weight to that statement, as opposed to, hey, look, we're not doing any snacks. They get the one snack with their meal, and that's going to be that. I wasn't a jerk. I was very clear. You know what I mean? And no one is going to think that there's a gray area in there that they can float around and it still be okay. It's like, no, he said one, singular. And he made it very clear, And that's what Jesus did when he spoke to the Pharisees. He looked them in the eyes and he said, hey, this is what it is. It's not whatever you think it is. This is what it is. And he left it. Yeah. He left it. And so you got to understand that standing for truth, that's the guy you're standing for. Mm-hmm. It's not just the kumbaya, hold hands, nobody throw a punch. That's not the reality. And we talked about Ren Collective earlier. They sang a song I hadn't heard yet. It's called Holy Trouble. Sure. The chorus of it is, he says, Holy Spirit, Holy Rebel, which I love that he called him that. Rattle cages, kick over the tables, start a riot, a revival, come on holy renegades, start some holy trouble. And I just thought it was a wonderful thing, because if you are going to stand for what's right, there's going to be systems in place in our government, in our secular world, in our fallen world that we have to deal. There's going to be systems in place set against whatever you're trying to stand for. You've got to tear those down to be able to establish truth. If all you're going to do is yell truth from a distance, but you're not willing to get your hands in the mud of the actual process of tearing these things down, you're not going to impact any real change. And that's who Jesus was. It's the reason that the Pharisees and all these people were so upset about what he was doing, is because it was affecting the systems they had in place. If Jesus would have just been super cool, kept doing his carpentry thing, and occasionally shared some truth tidbits with people as they walked by, no one would have cared. But he was disrupting the systems that were in place. And that's what we're called to do. When we stand for truth, we are disrupting the systems.
Well, something when you read that song, there's something that I'd been thinking about, when I made the statement that, Jesus chose his battles wisely, and sometimes, he'd move over here, and sometimes I want to clarify that real quick. Before he would move over here, he would speak the truth. Mm-hmm. Okay. I was talking about at the end of it there, he may not stay and just fight the battle.
Oh, sure.
He would speak the truth and then get out there,
Yeah.
And so, but, and a lot of times inciting riots, and then going out and chilling out and not being a part of that, and that's pretty cool. And then another thing, you and I talked last week about, I was preaching on James and learned a lot about James and stuff. And, we talked about how James gets a bad rap sometimes from, spirit-led, grace-preaching churches and stuff, because they think that if you read it wrong, James may be putting you back under the law. But It's because people don't understand the audience that James had. James felt like that he was talking to the church, and if you were part of the way or the church, then he felt like that you'd had the same radical experience with Jesus that he has, and so he could talk to you that way. So when we look at James and read his book, he sounds a lot like his brother Jesus. Mm-hmm. He's very direct. He's to the point. But the same people that kind of give James a little bit of a hard time, they praise Jesus for it, but then they want to give James a little bit of a hard time. But to me, they sound a lot alike.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's like you said, it's very cut and dry.
Yep.
They could have said things a lot easier than they said it. Mm-hmm. James says, if you lack wisdom, ask for it. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to ask for it, you got to believe what he tells you.
Mm-hmm. I think the part that bothers me so much about it, and I'm not going to chase this rabbit even though I want to, the part that bothers me so much about it is what they're arguing for. The people that are arguing it's the ground that they're trying to argue for makes no sense to me, because the argument, here's James' presentation. Faith without works is dead. If you have faith in Christ, there's going to be works in your life that verify that you have faith in Christ. That seems very reasonable. Mm-hmm. That seems very reasonable. If you are an electrician, you will do electrician things. That doesn't seem super complicated to me. And the other side is saying, well, your works aren't what save you. It's just your faith. Right. So you're trying to tell me that if you don't have works, that you don't believe in Jesus. And it's like, why are you trying to fight for that ground?
Like, it doesn't even matter.
Like, why is that the place? Is that what you want to do? Like, is that your goal, is to have faith and then do nothing?
Right.
Because if that's the ground you're arguing for, I really don't even want to be around you.
You're looking for the minimum standards.
Like, and that's not my people.
Right.
That's just not my people. It's like, oh, you could be an electrician and not do electrician's things. And it's like, okay, for what? Do you get paid to not do electrician things as an electrician? Why are you even interested in this? And so that's the part that frustrates me to no end about the back and forth there.
Why do you want to be that guy?
And you said something. You talked about how Jesus would make his statement and then he'd withdraw. I want to make this so clear because this is something I have seen people struggle with for years and years and years, and it's going to be until I die. I'm going to see people struggle with this. And so, if this is you, listen. You don't have to argue with people until they agree with you. Mm-hmm. That's not the point. That's not the point. I've seen too many people get trapped in arguments and feel like they can't leave the conversation until the other person concedes their point. And it's like, dude, that is not your job. Speak the truth. You've planted a seed. Now walk away from it. Yeah. Let the Lord deal with what happens with that seed after it's planted.
And a good way to do that is to allow them to speak first. Mm-hmm. Hey, it seems like we disagree on this. Would you tell me tell me exactly how you feel about it and why? And then you let them speak, and then you speak, and then you walk away.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah, I've had many conversations where people have went on 30, 45 minutes to me about a subject, and the way that I ended it was, well, I just don't really see it that way. To me, it's more like this.
Or never even tell them.
And then
just
I'm done. 45 minutes of them, 13 seconds of me, and I'm satisfied. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I had a guy spill his guts out to me the other day, and I didn't even say okay. Mm-hmm. I just listened, and when he finished, he walked away. Yeah. I didn't tell him how I felt about it or anything. Mm-hmm. You don't have to.
Sure.
I didn't feel led to.
Yep.
I didn't feel like it was not my time.
Yeah. And it's okay if they have the last word too.
Yeah.
I'll let you have the first and the last word. As a matter of fact, I've had the 45. I've said my 13, and they feel like they gotta have another rebuttal, and I'll just go. And this is my big finisher. I go, I hear you. And if you ever hear me say I hear you, it means just that. I hear you. It doesn't mean I agree. Right. It means I hear you. Amen. And I can walk away on that and be totally satisfied. And
I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey man, I'm good. You got anything else?
No, man, I'm good.
Hopefully everybody understands what it means to stand for truth.
Amen. Yeah. See y'all later.